just put the recording on. Welcome to English Today. Our class today is specifically about the story that you read this week, which is called My Father's Eyes. So to start the class today, I want you to open your mics and tell me what the story is about. Give me some idea what the story is about. Imagine that I am somebody who doesn't know the story at all. Tell me what happens in the story and how it works. Okay, you don't need to put up your hand. You can just open your mic and tell me about the story. Who's going to start for us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, even though I don't remember the characters clearly, but then the story is about a woman who is married and their daughter has a cerebral palsy.
Yes.
So in order for their daughter to heal, that woman needs to find his father, his long lost father.
Okay. And
Yeah,
how do they decide to do that?
they went to her mother, to the grandmother of the baby who has a cerebral palsy.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked about his grandfather, but then their mother gave them a wrong address of someone who died. And when he went to the grave, they found out that that person was a wrong person.
Okay. And what do they find out?
Yeah, but then
as
at
well?
the end, they found out that the grandmother was raped.
That's
and
right.
her father was arrested, but he's not dead, but he was alive.
All right, good. Okay. And what happens at the end of the story? Does the main character get married again?
At the end of the story, the main character get married to somebody else. His husband left her because he couldn't manage to do what he asked her to do.
Right. Okay. And she got married to somebody. Where did she meet that person? Where did they meet?
Oh, they met at the graveyard, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Yes. They met at the graveyard, at the grave of the person, the wrong grave that the grandmother
person who thought, yes.
That's right. Okay, good. Thank you, Tamkele Siwe. That's great. Now, who of you can remember what the main character's name is? What is her name?
It's Naledi.
Naledi. Yes. Okay. Her name is Naledi. Does anybody know what her mother's name is? Or the grandmother? Okay. Yeah, it's not as yes.
It's Pamela No.
Okay. And does anybody know what the child with cerebral palsy is called?
Fundisa.
Fundisa. Sometimes they give her a pet name called like Fifi. I think it was, if I remember correctly. Or
Fufu.
Fufu.
It was Fufu.
That's it. Fufu. Okay. Now, when you read this story, what were the things that shocked the story? Anybody can answer this. Did anything about this story shock any of you? Or what was unexpected about the story? Was nothing unexpected?
There is.
And what was it?
There is.
Tell me what's unexpected.
Sir, I'm sorry. Can you please just repeat the question? I just joined now.
Okay. I'm asking what is unexpected about the story that you were reading for today? What was the unexpected part about it, or in your opinion?
What expected is that Naledi's mother giving her the wrong address of her father.
Okay. That's certainly one of the things that is unexpected. And why do you think that Naledi's mother decides that she wants Naledi to think that the father is dead? Why do you think she wants Naledi to think that?
It's because she didn't want Naledi to know her father.
She didn't want her to know her father. Okay. And why didn't she want her
Yes,
to
and
know
it's because
the father?
she did.
Because she was a child afraid.
Yes. Okay, that's the important part there. She doesn't want her Naledi to know who her father is because her father was a rapist. Okay. That's a good reason for not wanting a child to know their father. But it would also be something that would protect Naledi's mother, the grandmother. Because if she, in her own mind, had said that the father is dead, then she didn't need to engage with him anymore, even though he was alive and in prison. Does Naledi ever meet her father in the story?
Yes, she does.
Yes.
She does. And what is her father like?
He's skinny, and ever since he was arrested,
He wasn't in a good condition.
He wasn't in good condition. Yeah. Can you remember what his name is?
Can you please say that again, sir?
I say, can you remember what her father's actual name is? His real name?
Yes, it was me.
What is his own, sir?
Yes. Okay. Did he have a nickname?
Yes.
English.
Yeah. Why do you think he had that nickname? Does the story tell us why he had that nickname? Okay, so the story actually doesn't tell us why he had that nickname. You can probably work out from the nickname itself why he might have had that. There could be many options as to why. Now, I want you to think about the story a little bit, to dig a little bit deeper. Remember, when we are doing this course, we are trying to learn a little bit about critical thinking. We're asking some of the uncomfortable questions about the story. So I want you to think about this. Who knows what the name Naledi means? What does it mean?
It means a star.
A star, right. And do you think that a person who receives the name Naledi, is it like a positive name or does it have a negative feel?
It's a positive name, sir. It
Right. Now-
refers to a positive.
Yes, okay. If you give somebody the name Naledi, you think of shining, of brightness, of light, okay? Now imagine that you are Naledi's mother and you've been raped and you are now pregnant. You have several options. You can have the baby aborted, or you can have the baby and give it up for adoption, or you can keep the child. Why do you think she keeps the child and then she names the child Naledi, something very positive? Why do you think she does that?
So I think that since Naledi's mother went through a rape, she experienced a lot of pain. So I think she kept Naledi because she thought that, or she believed that Naledi would shine and wipe her tears away, be a good person, and yeah, be her light actually.
So the lady's mother decides that instead of thinking of Naledi as a negative outcome of the rape, that instead she's going to think of it as positive, as Naledi as a positive influence, okay? Now, Naledi's mum, her mother, the grandmother, says, "You have your father's eyes." And she says it quite a few times. I mean, the whole story is called My Father's Eyes. If you were Naledi's mother, and every time you looked at your child, you saw your rapist's eyes, how would you feel?
Surely pain.
Pain. Now, for the guys in this class, men are very seldom raped, although they can be raped. But this story that we've been reading is very much from a female's perspective. So my question now to you who are men in our class, when you read this story, what does it tell you about females? What do you learn about women? I see the men are very quiet suddenly. They're a bit scared. I notice it's interesting. Whenever we do this story with students, that it is the female students who speak most about this story. And I think the reason is because many of our female students can identify with the story on a number of different levels. When you look at the story, do the men who are featured in the story, are they featured positively or negatively for the most part?
Negatively.
Yes. There's only one exception to that, isn't there? Who is the exception to that?
The one who married Naledi at the end.
Correct.
New husband.
Yes, her new husband is the only one who comes out positive. Eh? The father Naledi's father and Naledi's husband both come out very badly in the story. So in terms of men and women, the story seems to be slanted very much towards women. But that doesn't mean that it isn't valuable for men. And I think it can teach men a lot of things. I hope that the men in the class will have some courage to speak out a bit about it. But also I want you to think about some of the other uncomfortable things that it brings about, okay? So for any man who reads this story, it must say to men anywhere, this is what happens when a woman is raped and when she becomes pregnant. Because Naledi's mother is actually kicked out by her parents, isn't she? Can you imagine why she was kicked out by her parents? The story doesn't actually tell us. Why would she be kicked out by her parents?
Because she got pregnant at a young age.
Right, because she got pregnant at a young age. But that probably means that she didn't tell her parents that she had been raped. Or her family kicked her out because she was raped. So there are different ways of looking at this depending on how the family reacts. So Naledi's mother goes through a very, very difficult time. But she comes out okay. What does she become? What does she do? What does Naledi's mother do as a profession?
She's a nurse.
She's a nurse. And what do nurses do? They help other people. So from somebody who has been raped and hurt and who now has the product of the rape, the child that she looks at every day has the same eyes as the man who raped her. She looks upon that child every day and cares for that child, loves that child, and gives that child a name, very positive name. Can you imagine how strong Naledi's mother would have to be able to do that? It's not just an ordinary person who can let go of what happened and rejoice in the child that comes out of that and still become a nurse despite being kicked out by her family. For a moment, whether you are male or female, I want you to try and imagine how hard it must be to be kicked out by your family. I don't know if any of you have been kicked out by your family, but if you have, it must be a very difficult thing. You have to survive on your own. You have to make some money for yourself so that you can live from day to day. And remember that Naledi's mother is now also pregnant and with a child. So she's not only looking after herself, but after her child. So it's quite a deep story. When we are looking at stories, we are not only looking at the emotional impact of a story, we are also looking at things that come through in the story on a regular basis, themes. What do you think are some of the themes that keep coming back in the story?
Pain, sir.
Theme. Yes, that means things that are these are things that keep like some information that keeps coming back. Like, for example, a theme in the story is eyes. Whose eyes are spoken about in the story?
The father's eyes.
Yes, the father's eyes. Who else's eyes?
Naledi's eyes.
Naledi's eyes. Who else's eyes? There are two other
I
people's
can't
eyes.
remember the grave.
Naledi's child's eye.
Relatives
Yes.
child.
Naledi's
Eyes.
child's eyes and one other person's eyes.
The grandmother.
The
Yes, the grandmother. So we have the eyes of the father, Naledi's eyes, Naledi's child's eyes, and Naledi's mother's eyes. At the end of the story, whose eyes does Naledi look into? Who does she speak about? Whose eyes?
Her second child's eyes.
Her second child's eyes. And what does she say about them?
They look like a mother's eyes.
Yes. Now, I want you to consider that Naledi's mother has a child called Naledi. Okay. Naledi has her father's eyes. So when Naledi's mother looks at her, she remembers the rapist. Naledi has a child. When she looks at her eyes, she sees her mother's eyes, Naledi's mother's eyes. And when she looks at the child, she remembers her mother. Now, do you see the change there? All the way through the story, we're having the father's eyes, and the father is a negative influence in the story. But Naledi's mother is a very positive influence in the story, or a very positive character in the story. So most of the story is about this negative character and his eyes. But the end of the story changes that. The next generation has Naledi's mother's eyes. So the future, symbolically at least, is much more positive. Do you see that, how cleverly the author does that? For most of the story, it's my father's eyes, the father's eyes, the father's eyes. But then it changes at the end to the mother's eyes. Isn't that clever? Now, when we read stories like this, and the stories that you will read throughout the semester, because there are another 3 stories which you're going to read, they all have these things called themes that run through the story, things that come back all the time. Okay? And those are the things that we're looking for. We want to say, what is the author trying to do in the story? And in this story, the author is trying to show, I think, how the characters change through the story and how one person looking at a negative situation can change it. Naledi's mother, even though she is not the main character, that story rests on her. Because if she hadn't treated Naledi the way that she did, in the positive way that she did, if she hadn't given Naledi the name Naledi, light, star, and if she had thought about Naledi always as being a negative influence because of her eyes, Naledi could have turned out as a very different kind of a person. Instead, she treats her daughter with love. And that love changes things. Even though Naledi herself has quite a negative experience in her first marriage, when she gets to the second marriage, things change. Does Fufu change in the story? Does anybody know, just out of interest, what cerebral palsy is? What is cerebral palsy? Anybody? Does anybody know?
I don't know, say, but I think since it is a cerebral something, I think it has to do with the brain,
Mhm.
which is leading to her not being able to walk and speak. I think speak properly.
Yes. Now, what I really like about what you did there, Kobile, is you said, let's look at these words. Cerebral always has to do with your brain. Okay. So you made a very good observation there. You said, if this name has cerebral in it, it's got something to do with the brain. Palsy is a very old word, which means sort of gone to sleep or fainting. The brain has gone to sleep or fainted. What I'd like you to all to do is to go and, thank you, somebody's found it for it. Beware, you found it. Damage in the brain before birth, yeah. I was going to say to you all, please go and see what cerebral palsy is, but it's a type of brain damage which can affect people in different ways. In this case, Fufu can't walk and she can't speak well. Now, at the beginning of the story, Naledi's husband thinks that it is that the reason for Fufu's illness is because the ancestors are concerned about Naledi's father. Tell me a little bit about that. What's going on in the story there? Because this leads to another theme in the story. We looked at eyes in the story. Now let's look at this other theme in the story. What's going on there?
Sir,
Sir. Oh,
Can it-
it's up,
no,
Nobile. Go ahead.
okay. I think that Naledi's husband had a strong belief in ancestors
Mhm.
since they thought that Naledi's father was dead.
Hmm.
So they believed that if they go to his grave
Mhm.
and maybe slaughter some cows or
Mhm.
goats, they believe that they are, I don't know if I could say their prayers or their wishes could be answered, and Naledi's daughter could walk again or could be all right again. So I'm saying that Naledi's husband had a strong belief in ancestral things.
Right. And then there was somebody else who wanted to speak, and I think it just says student. So I'm not sure who that is. Who wanted to say something else?
Yeah, it's me, sir. Blessing. I think
Blessing,
the
yes.
father. Yes, I think the father here lost hope.
Mhm.
Because he was Christian.
Yeah.
I think he just lost hope and wanted to try something else that was going to save her daughter. I mean, his
And
daughter.
Right. Okay. And so he turns to traditional religion.
Yeah.
As all of you now as students, can speak to me a little bit about this. Can you be Christian and also practice traditional religion?
No, sir.
You
No.
can. You can.
No.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Very
So-
hard.
No.
Yes.
See, this is one of the interesting things about the story, because in the character of Naledi's husband, we have somebody who is Christian, but who also believes that you can engage in traditional religion. Then you also have Naledi, who is even more Christian, I think, than, well, the story seems to say, than her husband. And she feels uncomfortable about this idea of a ritual, but she still goes through with it. Okay, and even her mother is not so keen on it, but they go through with it. Now, tell me about this tension between, you know what tension means? What does tension mean?
A clash between characters.
Okay, clash. There is a clash in this story between Christianity and traditional religion. There are some people who believe that you can do both at the same time. And you can find people who are priests and ministers who believe that, and also people who just go to church, for example. And there are even branches of Christianity in South Africa that actively combine the two. But there are also others who believe that it's either one or the other. You can't have both of them. You decide one or the other. What does this story tell us about this tension? What do you think is coming out here in the story with this tension?
I think it's a message.
Okay, is this blessing?
Yes, blessing.
Okay.
I think there's a message here.
Okay, tell us what the message is.
I think the message is you should not judge anyone for their beliefs, I think.
Okay.
Everyone is allowed to do what they want.
All right.
Yeah.
There is the possibility that the story is telling us that we need to allow people to be who they need to be. I think one of the other important things that the story is bringing out is, and you may not even have thought about this, where does Christianity come from? Or where did it come from? Anybody know?
Sir, are you speaking in terms of in the book or Christianity in general?
In general.
I'd say it comes from white people.
Okay, or we might be more specific that it comes originally from the Middle East. Okay, so from Israel.
Yes.
Then through white people, through missionaries to South Africa. Okay. In fact, it didn't only just come through white people, because there were African American Black people from the USA who came as missionaries as well. But yes, largely through white missionaries. So in a sense, it is a foreign religion. But traditional religion, where does it come from?
From Black people.
From all Black people?
Xhosa people mostly.
All right, all Xhosa. Or
yeah,
Xhosa or Tswana.
African.
So it comes from.
Yeah, let's just say African, guys, because even from the other countries, they also do it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to just give you a little bit of a hint about that. When you think about Africa, Africa has a huge population, of which not all are Black, and not all of the minorities are white either. If you go along the east coast of Africa, and if you go into North Africa, there are Arab nations or Arabic nations with Islam, which has been in Africa for as long, not as long, but almost as long as Christianity in the north part of Africa. But traditional religions are very focused on particular areas, and they are different from place to place in Africa. One of the major themes in traditional religion is ancestor worship or ancestor veneration. Okay, so that's one of the common things among many people of Africa. But not all Africans are traditional religion or have traditional religion, and not all people in Africa originally believed in those things. So they're very specific to particular areas. So yes, Zulu people, and particularly Nguni people, that means people who are Zulu speakers, Xhosa, Siswati, Ndebele, those people have a very common understanding of traditional religion, then there are slight differences between different areas in South Africa. So let us rather, instead of using African, let us say Nguni people, Sesotho people, and so on or so forth, okay? But the point I'm wanting to make is that traditional religion was already here, okay? It is in the heart of people who were here before the white missionaries came. And in fact, before the Nguni people came down into Southern Africa, the San people who were here originally also had a type of traditional religion. I'm just trying to remember what the god's name was. Qamata. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. Qmata. A lot of Xhosa people know that. Qamata, I think it is. But if you're Xhosa, you'll be able to say the Q better than me. Have you heard of that?
Qamata.
Yeah, it comes originally from the San people, okay? If you know what the Khoisan people are, that was their main god-like figure. And it was drawn in by the Xhosa people when they started mixing with the San people. And so they absorbed parts of that. So you see that traditional religion has incorporated a number of things from local areas, but it was from here. And so it speaks to people's deepest parts of their being. Christianity, on the other hand, came with missionaries, and it came with very specific ideas about who God is and what God does. So not entirely different to traditional religion, but have different ideas. The story that we are reading looks at the tension between people who are Christian or brought up Christian, who also have a longing to be true to aspects of their local culture. And there are some Christians who would say, don't even go there, don't go into local culture because it's dangerous. Then there are others who say, put the two together. And then there are others who say, let go of Christianity altogether and just have traditional religion. So this story is holding all of those things together and saying they don't exist easily. They fight against each other. They make people feel uneasy inside. So when you read, and I want you to read the story again, I want you to look out for that theme. It keeps coming back about people feeling a bit uncomfortable about either being Christian or about practicing traditional religion. That is a very deep theme of the story. Have any of you noticed it now that I've spoken about it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now you have an assignment due for me, or a worksheet due for me on Friday. My computer, by the way, is going to run out in about 5 minutes. So I just want to start rounding this up. You have an assignment due for me on Thursday, and I want to just have a look at part of that, because I want to guide you through what I'm looking for in these questions. Please also, will you take a picture of your list of words that you had for the story, that words that you had not encountered before, and can you send that to me on WhatsApp so that I can just take a look at those? I'm going to share a screen with you quickly. Please tell me when you can see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Now, the reading worksheets. Here we go. Here's your first one. It says, read my father's eyes and answer the questions. Okay. There's some things missing here. I'm going to send you another one of these, but let's go through these anyway. For this first question, you have to make a little table where you say whose eyes and where you found them when they're talking about it. So the first time we hear about anybody's eyes are Naledi's father's eyes, and we see it on page